Hey YouTube. So just to go over a couple little things here for the moment. Normally when you start any motor you want to check the motor oil in it. Now I don't check the motor oil in this all the time because it's usually good or always good, and you can see from the end of the stick there it's full, but it's also very clean. So I'm not worried about this thing at the moment. I was thinking about changing oil on it. The problem with that is that it's not really dirty yet. Now, sometimes I take the filters off and I blow them out, and you have to have like a low air pressure to do that. You don't want anything to be destroying the paper element or whatever that's in it. That's okay on this thing as well. You know, you can't help but get sawdust all over the place because that's what this is. It's a sawdust maker. But anyway, I really like this Kohler motor, I gotta tell you. Now, the one I have here, you can see is 19 horsepower. I used to hate Kohler motors when I was a kid, because they never wanted to start, they never seemed to run right. But I gotta tell you that the newer ones, and actually when I say newer, I'm talking going back 25 years, they really upped their game. I have this Kohler motor here on this sawmill, and I also have two other motors that are Kohler. One on my Sears garden tractor, okay, and then one on that other orange tractor I have. I forget the name, Simplicity I think it's called. Now that Simplicity is so old, it has the old motor on it, so you got to be careful with them. I sometimes have grief with it, but it's a good tractor. It's just that it works backwards from all the other controls on other tractors. But anyway, talking about the Kohler motors, they're very good. I have no problem with it at all. They've come a long way and they've done it right. So as far as I'm concerned, they're good. Now I have neighbors who had Kohler motors and they blew them up or whatever. You know, I run these things full with what they're supposed to be. When I run my garden tractor motor, which is a Kohler like this, I run that thing totally full throttle. I have for 25 years and it still runs good. You know, it starts right up, the oil's good in it. I change oil every season actually in the garden tractor because I don't use it that much. But you know, if you change oil and stuff in them, clean out the filter. I just changed the gas filter on my tractor as well, and this one here I'll probably change when I do the oil filter. But anyway, I'm just saying, I think that these Kohler make good motors. And for me, now, I don't see any reason why this 19 horsepower can't cut every kind of log you can put on here. Now, I know they make bigger motors, and I'm not saying not to get them. I'm just saying that this thing works good for me. I've had no problem with it. So, anyway, the other question I get a lot of is why I don't have anything up on the thing up here to oil the saw blade. I had read an article about from a guy who his father ran a sawmill, one of these type, and he ran a sawmill, and they don't use any water at all. Now what I do is I take some WD-40, and you can use whatever you want, at the beginning of sawing, and I start the machine, I let it run, I spray oil on a little bit of oil on the blade to mainly get the rust off. And the rust that's on the blade is not really the blade rusting, it's just like from particles, so it pretty much comes right off. But what I like to do is do the ball bearings, or do the bearings here for the roller guides, because the one thing I don't like about this is there's no grease fitting on them. Now, I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying there's no grease fitting on it. So I've never had to adjust them since the day I bought it. It's been perfect. I never had to adjust any of that stuff. But, you know, I'm not saying that every time you buy a sawmill you're not going to have problems with it. But I am saying that I haven't had any problems with this thing. You know, it's a good mill. I really like it, and it continues to run. So anyway, you'll see when the camera here as I start this. Let me just zoom in a little bit there. Where I spray the oil, actually. It's not a secret or anything, it's just I'm telling you what I do. So I'm going to start this up. So I'm going to let it warm up a little bit, just for a minute. And then I'm going to put it on full throttle and let the blade go around, and you'll see where I spray. It's not a big deal, and I've been doing that for probably the last 2 years and not using any water. So, you know, I'm not saying you shouldn't use water. If you want to, use it. I don't care if you use water, if you put, you know, diesel fuel, I don't care what you use. That's up to you. All I'm telling you is I found you don't need water. So as far as oiling this thing goes, what you just saw me do, or worrying about the blade being wet, or whatever you want to call it, that's all I do. And then I'll run that for probably the most around 3 hours, and then I'll do it again. And I haven't had any problems with it. And I get questions about these things that I made for the dogs right there. Yes, I make these, okay? But what I'm going to tell you is tapping the 1-inch bolt is really, I mean, if you're a machine guy, have at it. But if you're not, tapping that bolt can lead to a lot of grief, because it's fairly hard, and when you're running a 1/4-inch tap in there, they tend to break off. And once the tap breaks off, you're pretty much, you know, at the end of the rope. You don't have anything left to work with. So I try to sell this plus the bolt, you know, that's the big bolt, and the handle. That keeps the whole thing where you can take yours off, just curl it out, curl this one in, and then put the bolt in the front here, and I have no problem with it. I mean, when they used to fall off for me, that was a nuisance. You know, it's bad enough you got to do a lot of walking around here when you're working with this. And to me, it's not even bad. It's just, you know, I'm just saying. But, you know, when that little piece there would fall off, that aluminum piece, and you got to go find it where it is, sometimes it would roll, you know, 5 feet away from you, or on the other side of the mill. So then you got to walk all the way around there, and like I say, you're already doing a lot of walking. Now, you know, if you're young and it don't bother you, have at it. I used to sell those things for, I think, $40 when I made them. Now they're more like $65, because I don't know what's going on with this country. Every time I go to buy something, it's twice as much as it was the day before. I mean, I bought a bag of cherries the other day. 2 pounds of cherries was $17.50. For crying out loud, they must be paying the people who pick them $50 an hour, or somebody's getting some money. But anyway, that's enough about the cherries. So, you know, if you want one of them, just email me, and I'll tell you the prices of everything exactly. So you can email me at josaljo, josaljo 1 WON @gmail.com. That's my address. So if you want to email me, you can do it that way. So anyway, I'm going to let this warm up a little bit. I got to get the backhoe warmed up as well, and then I'm going to hook up this chain that I have here so I can bring a log over to it to cut. Okay guys, so this is another red oak. I have tons of red oak. I I do need to cut some white oak though. I haven't gotten any cut. It's 12 inches at this end. When I look at my thing, that should give me an 8-inch board, 8.5 inches. So I like cutting the cant. You know that. That's what I do. Also, sometimes I get questions about the tools I use. I've made quite a few things for the sawmill to make it work, but make it work easier. But I bought this thing at Northern Tools. At the time, I think I paid 50 bucks for this cant hook, and I got to tell you, I like this. It really works well. It's got a big heavy handle on it. I mean, you can see the size of that handle. I can't even get my fingers all the way around it, and I don't have the biggest hands, but you know, my hands aren't that small. But they have it tapered up here where you can get a good grip on it and everything, and it works good. I mean, I'll put this thing like this and sit on this, and I'm about 230, and I can pick up quite a few heavy logs that way. So I'm just telling you because a lot of people ask me about these different things. So I got this one at Northern Tools. At the time, like I say, it was around 50 bucks, and you know, the problem with today's prices are utterly frightening. Believe me, I can't hardly believe when I see the price of stuff. So anyway, we got 12 inches down there. And see, there's a little bit of a crook in this. That end is up off a little bit. And we got basically 12.5 here. So it's a pretty straight log. The problem here is I'm going to turn it until I get that end down there, the far end, or the end closest to the machine, down on the ground a little bit. Or down on the bunk, I mean. So right there it doesn't seem too bad. Yeah, it's touching everywhere. So I'm going to leave it at that point to start doing the cant. The other thing sometimes that I oil or whatever is sometimes I'll put a little squirt of oil on this 1-inch bolt that's on the dog. Sometimes I'll squirt a little bit on the pipe so that the dog can slide back and forth. But you really don't want to put a lot of oil on that because, I mean, I usually don't do it, but sometimes I do, especially if it's been sitting a while. So you don't want to really put oil on that because it'll grab the sawdust, and then the sawdust will actually bind up on the dog and you won't be able to get it in and out right, or slide it back and forth, I should say. Okay, so we're looking for an 8-inch cant here. Oh, I didn't realize this. This log has a little bit of a crack in it here. Let me just show you this. So you can see the crack in that log. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll that a little bit more just to get this flat so that this crack don't really bother me. Now this one here is probably not in there that deep. I used to paint the ends of the log, but I found that it really doesn't seem to help a lot. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, depends on the wood. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it also doesn't. Okay, so I want this horizontal to the bunk rail. I'm going to turn a little bit more there, and then I'm going to cut that. So now you can see that that's kind of flat, and what we'll do is we'll check where the 8 inches is going to fall. So right here is where I would be cutting to get the 8 inches wide. So I'm going to have a little split in that first board once I get, you know, cutting the 8 inches, but I don't want to cut below it because that'll take away the 8-inch width. So let me go down to where I'm going to hit 8 inches there, and then we'll start to do this cutting. Okay, right there ought to be good. Yeah, that's right at 8 inches there. So, I have 8 inches all the way down there, I know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start rolling this thing so I can cut it at 8 inches. Just remember to keep your boards square. You need to keep them nice and flush against your backstop. So I'm just showing you this. Normally I don't do quite this much measuring, but like 8 inches is right there, so it's about maybe 1/4 of an inch below the bark, and that's where I want to cut this off because I want that 8-inch cant. That's what I'm looking for. Working out pretty good so far. Further, so like maybe 2 inches down or 1.5 inches down. That'll give me what I'm looking for. Now you can see where the 8 inches is from here. Okay, so that's what you want to go for. But you want to give yourself a little so you can get boards out of it, because the board takes up about 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch at times, depending on what you're cutting. So if I cut like 9 inches off the bump, that'll tell me whether I should cut any more or not. So I'm going to just use the machine to go 9 inches up. have the machine here set right at 9 inches here. Okay, because I'm 9 inches off the bunk, and that's good. Got 9 inches up, and I'm going to cut this side here. I should be right at 8 inches then. Might even be able to get 9 out of that, but 8 inches will definitely give me the true oak wood. So I'm going to roll this and get the 9 inches. Now sometimes I can roll this and not have it fall off the bunk. You can either bring the backstops up and roll it, okay? And sometimes, depending on the size of the bunk, it's a little hard to bring them up. You can either do that, or you can move the log way over and then roll it. So I like putting it against the backstop, this way it won't get, you know, hit me on the feet or whatever. It can be 8 because I have 9 that way, but 9 inches, 8 inches, whatever, it's going to be good. That's 9, and you can see I'm real close to where there'll be a slight bit of wane possibly on it. So I'll cut it there just to see if the curve in the log is giving me any grief. Sure if you can see that. Yeah, there's wane here from here to here, on both sides, so I really should take that down a little bit. I think I'll take another inch off of that. That'll give me the 8-inch width, and then I'll turn it one more turn and cut boards out of that. half that and cut it up if you want to, but if you know me, I don't want to save anything that's not a full size. So like what I was saying there about turning the log, you just push it over. And it's a cant at this point. You can roll it over right there and it'll stay on the bump. Because this split is in there, it's going to be hard to get the exact cut by touching the log like that and then coming back and going down an inch, because it's going to make the board at that end a lot thicker. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just going to look up here and see what I'm at. And I'm at 9 inches. So, you know, that's I can use the inch mark to judge where I need to be. So I'm at 9 at the top of that. So if I take it down to say like 8 1/4 or 8 3/8, that'll give me enough space to cut that crack out of there, plus to get the other good board. Still going to be this split in one more board there. Nothing you can really do with it. Looks like I might have a knot or two in there. So I'm just going to come down here and right to this point and cut that off. So you can see here there's one knot in this. There's a knot down there. That one's sort of solid. This one here, it's solid, but it's got a little bit of a hole there. So I'm still going to keep that board because I got all red oak there. I got the full width. So I'll just show you the measurement of that. So it's 8 inches wide, 8 and 16. I'll let you take a look at the wood. Somebody had told me on one of the videos I made I didn't show them the wood, and I sometimes forget. It's actually beautiful red oak. bringing the blade down, touch the wood, let the crank lock itself in place, drag it back, and then go down 1 inch. Now you can do different things here, it depends on how you feel about it. But that gives me a 1 inch board there, but it'll end up probably like 7/8 or so. But I want to be close to I need enough wood on there to be able to plane so that I have a 3/4 inch board left. That's the problem. So right there I'm at about 15/16. So I'm going to go down another 16. And then I'll cut that and I'll be good. So sometimes people ask me, or they'll say, why don't I leave the blade down where it is and run the saw and come back and take the sawdust off the wood? The problem with that is that you're hitting one side of the blade teeth, and if you mess them up or wear them down a little, the saw will start to cut crooked on you. So I don't do that. I raise it up. If I want to see the wood, I brush it off. When I'm making a video, I'll brush the wood off so that you can see it. But I normally don't brush it off. You know, only if I'm unsure of what I'm looking at. So that's pretty solid there, even though there's like a knot or whatever, a little bit of grain showing. Now right here, this knot, there's a little bit of a hole there, but I'm still keeping this wood because normally I never use 8-foot long red oak unless I'm making molding. So normally you're cutting red oak boards up to make furniture. That's the thing that you need to realize. So, you know, throwing everything away, like I've already thrown more away than I should have, but it's because I don't want to have it laying everywhere. I just want to keep it as neat as I can. Broken off in its lifetime. But it's good all the way down there, so I can still cut an 8-foot board out of here. I'm just not going to be able to use this. Now, it depends on what you do with your woodworking. If you use filler of some sort, you can definitely fill this in, you know, and then you can make all kinds of colors for filler and do whatever you want to do. So, I'm not saying to throw anything away. I'm just saying that you're going to have to deal with it somewhere. And somebody may like that in there. I don't know. It depends on the person. There's a lot of different aspects of looking at wood. See on this next board here, I've lost that knot. So this log here, or this board coming up, should be good. It has some, interesting things on it, but it's actually better than this. Now this side of this board actually looks a little bit better. Although there's a crack at that end. You can still get good wood out of it once it's dry and you plane it. Pretty nice. Now what I got left there is pretty much an exact 2-inch board, which means that when I cut, I'm going to end up kind of thin. That's right at, well, it's actually 2 1/16 there. So I'm going to go down to the 1-inch mark and cut that. 1 inch is as far down as you can go. So that'll give me one good board on the top there. The bottom board might be a little shy. Now I'll measure it, and if it's close to an inch, 15/16, I'll still keep it because I can still plane that. Really nice board here. Very nice. Yeah, this one is about 15/16, so I'll keep that board and plane it. Alright guys, so that's the end of my cut, and it's starting to drizzle a little bit. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.